Hey everybody, it's your old pal Chuck, and I am back with another review. Haven't been able to say that for a while. Well, actually, I have, but this is, I don't want to repeat my vlog too much, but we're back into the schedule of things. And we are starting off with the Transformers Authentics Optimus Prime. This is the Big Optimus and the Little Optimus. I think that's like Bravo Alpha or something. I'm really not clear on the packaging name. Like, that doesn't even say it on the Transformers Authentics. No. But it's something like that. But it's Big Optimus and Little Optimus. And basically, I mean, the best way I can explain these, besides being Market 6 figures, which we already know, is if you want something very close to the designs in Cyberverse, which is the upcoming series, that do not have the gimmicks worked in, this is as close as I think you're going to get, because the designs are very similar, but these just transform. There's no gimmicks or anything. Yes, these are very limited in their transformation and articulation, but it is what it is. Now, you'll immediately notice right off the bat that there are some differences in the paint. There's a lot more detail on Bigger Optimus. There's lights here that are painted in and the windows have a framing that's just not there on Little Optimus. But the bigger difference, pardon the pun, is that Big Optimus here has ball joints in the elbow. Unfortunately, there's these sideway joints that you can really only move the arm like that. You don't get any real elbow movement out of it. And unfortunately, that affects the transformation, which, we should get into now. So we're going to start off. I'll show you with Little Optimus first. And, the instructions are pretty good, but they kind of screw up one of the steps. And I'll explain. First thing you want to do is raise the arms overhead. And let's see if I can show this. Oh, yeah. I am impressed with how they designed the sliding joints here on the shoulders to basically be offset, but the way that the joints are cut, they still come out looking even. Also, when you first take this figure out of the packaging, give the arms a little tug to make sure those sliding bars are locked into place. So make sure the arms are facing forward like that. Then you want to come around the backpack here, unpeg it, lift it up. It's on a ball joint for some reason, so you can get a little waggle there. And that's actually one thing I almost forgot to mention is the best part of these figures is the heads are very expressive. You get a lot of waggle out of them. But yeah. Now, the instructions tell you to close the arms and bring down the front of the cab first. I strongly recommend not doing that on both figures. It is much easier to come in and flip the legs up first into position like this, and then squeeze the shoulder joints in so it pegs together like so. Oh, and somebody's calling. And then bring the cab down. As you'll see here on the side, there is a red tab where the robot shoulder is that secures the legs into place. It's much easier to fold the legs up and then have to finagle around it and kind of snap it into place. But once you're done, you have a very nice modern interpretation of the classic Optimus cab-over-engine vehicle design. And it rolls quite nicely. Now, let's get this out of the way. And Big Optimus shares the exact same transformation. Unfortunately, the ball joints in the elbows make it a little more difficult. Also, the head is not on a ball joint. It's on a simple swivel. So it's not as expressive. And on my figure, the ball joints in the hips and the ball joints in the knees, which are exactly the same on the smaller Optimus, are a little looser. For those of you who've been fans of mine for a while, you know how one of my pet peeves is ball joints in the hips, ball jointed hips, and ball jointed knees, especially if they're loose, because this little hip section here, more often than not, can get out of alignment and cause a major problem for transformation. It also happens when you have a ball jointed hip or a universal joint, but a very high thigh cut for rotation. I'll admit, I think with ball jointed knees and ball jointed hips, it happens a little less, but it's still annoying. So what you want to go ahead and do is straighten out the arms, bring them overhead, just like we did with the smaller Optimus. Now come around the back and go ahead and detach it. One thing I should mention, if you do get the larger Optimus figure, the cab section here is detached. Much like the smaller Optimus, it is on a ball joint, so it just has to snap into place. A little tricky because this bar likes to move. And as you can see, the ball joint on this is much looser. I don't understand why it's a ball joint. The only thing I can think of is because the part had to be removable, and that's why they did it. But again, you're going to come around the back here. Now this time, there are tabs on the back of the heel. They're going to go into slots right under the shoulder blade area. So that's nice, and will help secure the legs into place. Now for the fun part. You're going to slide the arms in. Oh, that's nice. Actually, it's not giving me a hard time. Usually with the elbow, this is a little more difficult because the elbow likes to bend before the shoulder does. Make sure you peg that together in the front, and then go ahead and bring the cab down, just like so. And you have a larger version of the modernized take on Optimus's classic cab over engine design. As you can see, there is more paint detail again on the larger Optimus. Some lights there on the front. Unfortunately, it is missing on each side the painted in windows and details, but again, these roll and they're fun. So we'll pause and I'll come back with my final thoughts. Okay, so obviously a lot of collectors have already made their decision about these authentic figures, and a lot of them have passed on them, feeling that they're subpar, not worthy of Transformers, or they're really kids' toys, which is kind of funny because, while yes, these are simplified figures sold at Market 6 stores, which are traditionally dollar or discount chain stores, these retail for roughly the same price as a Scout or what the Luxes used to go for years ago. But also, they usually get picked up by collectors and scalpers and then sold online for double or triple their price. If you're going to pick one, believe it or not, I'm going to go with Little Optimus. The lack of the ball joints in the elbow make for an easier transformation, and I really like the expressive ball joint in the head. It makes for a fun desk toy, which ultimately action figures and toys in general are meant to be. So I was able to actually pick these up from a friend of mine who had picked them up at his local Market 6 store. I think they might be showing up on Amazon, at least the smaller ones are. I'm not sure about that. By the time I got these, Amazon hadn't gotten them in stock, so I stopped looking. But realistically, don't pay more than about $7 for the small one and about $12 for the bigger Optimus. And that goes for like all the figures, because then you're paying like $25, $30 for something like the big Optimus. You're really not getting your money's worth. This is your old pal Chuck. Thanks for watching, and I will see you next time.